Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Merritt in the morning.
Good morning, everyone. You can probably see us up in the right-hand corner of the screen. Welcome to edition number 3 of Merritt in the Morning.
From Cafe Audrey.
From Cafe Audrey, a beautiful Fort
My name is
Harrison.
Jim Merritt.
And I'm Brad Klopfenstein.
Call him Klop.
We are your hosts. So you're watching Merritt in the Morning. We'll go through our slides. Here's our coming to you live from Cafe Audrey, a beautiful Fort Harrison. Thank you very much, Cafe Audrey, for hosting us. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Alps Brow Beer.
Delicious. Pick it up anywhere.
At least anywhere in Lawrence. In both Two Tom's Brewery locations. So let's stop this. So Jim, you and I talked. We today are going to do a primer, but to get people ready for what we are going to go over today, where is my share screen? Here we go. I've got video. I thought I had video. Where did it go? Now I can't find it. Well,
Great podcast.
yeah, I know, the great podcast. That's why.
You know what? You did a really nice job on app WIBC this week.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
filling in for Casey and Rob and Casey's show. And I think you got a future.
You would think, but
Yeah.
they seem to have a pretty solid lineup there.
Yeah,
So,
but you do a good job filling in.
well, thanks. So what I was looking for is this. I found it, Jim. Look at this.
Right.
So we're gonna play. Do you remember this?
This is Schoolhouse Rock.
It is Schoolhouse Rock. So this is going to be our primer to today's show topic.
How a bill becomes a law.
So there's Bill right there.
Mhm.
Get us a little bit more volume. So Jim, you spent 30 years in the legislature.
Mhm.
I wanted everybody to see this just to solidify the dream. And then we're going to completely blow this apart here in a few minutes. This is pretty back memories. You were just slightly older than me. These might have started by the time after you had graduated from the cartoon watching days.
I do remember this back in 1989 when I was running for the Senate. And this is probably viewed by a lot of kids.
Yeah. There's
It's
Jim.
a time filler for teachers.
Yeah. There was Jim's poor little Bill. And let's see. Did you ever wear a bow tie?
No, but the Senate's a bigger guy.
Okay. Or a couple of schools running around the lobby that wear bow ties. There's little Brad Klopfenstein listening in, all idealistic. That's because he was a special interest bill, Jim. That's why he was probably going to die in committee.
Of course, every bill is a special interest.
Yeah, yes, it is.
I don't think they had podcasts when they developed this.
No, they did not. This was the equivalent of a podcast. I don't remember the troops standing in line outside of the State House either. That probably not.
Poor Bill.
Now you're a law. There's Jim running down the stairs. How many times did you run down the front steps of the State House, Jim?
Oh, I enjoyed going in and leaving those big wood doors.
Yeah.
Wonderful place to work.
Uh-oh, now I've got something playing in the background. Oh, we'll stop this.
Yeah.
We don't need that anymore. Let's get out of that. Let's find where we went. There we go. So
That was an education for a lot of kids back then.
it was.
And in our legislature, we obviously have two houses, 50 members of the Senate, 100 members in the House of Representatives, and obviously the governor and the administrative branch of state government. And what generally happens is this session is a long session, Brad, and you know this better than most. It starts in early January, it ends in April, a couple of weeks. Has to end by April 29th. And the only thing that the legislature absolutely has to do this year is pass a 2-year budget. That is the penultimate bill this year. And right now, you have in the beginning, you have House bills and Senate bills, and then if they pass their respective houses, they cross, and sometimes they pass the other house, sometimes they don't.
So what you're saying is we could have been done in 2 weeks.
It could be done in 2
All right.
weeks.
All right, so we're gonna pick apart Schoolhouse Rock and poor little Bill.
Mhm.
And while that is the dream, that is not necessarily the reality.
Exactly. Mhm.
So, all right, so let's start. So somebody comes to you. And sometimes it's a constituent, other times it's a business interest or some other interest that would like to see a change in legislation,
Change in law.
change in law. So how often were those just general constituents with concerns that came to you, and how often were those businesses or other groups?
Well, it was a wide variety. We developed the safe haven law because of a tragedy. Baby Ephraim was left 6 feet away from the community north emergency room door. And baby Ephraim's mother or father didn't have the means or to serve that baby, to grow that baby, and rear that baby. And they also didn't have the courage to walk in and offer that baby to emergency personnel. And that's really what begat the safe haven law. The lifeline law was because too many college kids were under 21, becoming consumed with alcohol and dying. And it could be a tragedy. It could be somebody who has experienced something in their life that they want to go to City Hall, in this case, the state capitol, and change it. It could be, I chaired the utility committee for a long time. It could be a broad bill about energy policy. So it could be anybody that really wanted to change in the law. And so more times than not, it really a piece of legislation that I would sponsor, or author, would be about a situation that's happened in my district, the opioid scourge.
Right.
And we started Aaron's Law and allowing naloxone over the on an ambulance, police officer's car, hospital, and over the counter. That happened in several different ways, and it was in honor of Aaron Sims, who passed away from a drug overdose. And so there's just so many different ways that you get ideas for legislation.
So, and how many of those were just things that came to your mind without anybody prompting you, and you're like, you know what, I think we probably ought to do something about this. Okay.
I really, I always view myself as being an extension of constituents, extension of good public policy. And most of the bills that I authored were either brought to me or I'd actually noticed something, but more times than not, somebody had actually brought me the idea.
Okay, so you file a bill. In the Senate, you could file an unlimited number of bills. I believe in the House, you were limited to 10.
Yes, in short sessions, they now have bill limits in the House and the Senate, but it's unlimited in a long session such as this. And I had back in the 1990s, I would have a colleague who would file 42 bills. And but in 2017, I filed 24 bills that dealt with the opioid crisis, of which 17 or parts of those bills, 17 became law. And so you can understand why there would be a bill limit, and in short sessions, you don't have the time.
Right. So, all right, so you file a bill, then you get together in caucus. You were in the majority the entire time, I believe, that you were in the Senate. So,
Yeah, the Senate has been a majority all but 2 years since the Watergate years.
okay, so you guys meet in caucus and the Senate pro tem flips through all the bills. And does he look at you and say, Jim, you just filed 42 bills. Come on, man.
No, when you have 50 members and you have unlimited bill, that is the rule. And so the president pro tem doesn't have a voice. He may make a joke about it, but if you follow the rules, there's no reason to be stern or scold anybody because it is what it is.
Yeah. So, all right, so all these bills are laid out. Some, maybe most, get assigned to a committee.
Right. And
How does that process?
what happens is sometime in the fall, you have this idea. And you want to just a variety of things, and you see a hole in the law. So you take it to legislative services, they write the legislation correcting in your proposal, correcting state law or creating state law. And it's created legislation on paper and on streaming, if you will, and digitally. And you file that bill in the Senate, and you write it out. Bill goes to the president of the Senate. Now, President Pro Tempore has a lot of power in this regard, because he or she, there will be a female someday, that that individual can assign it to any committee they want to. And if it's a utility bill, you would think that it would be going to utility committee, but you just don't know. And then the committee chairman has the right and the power to hear that bill, have a public hearing of that bill, where the public can come in and speak on it or not. And so that is ordinarily the way a bill is heard. If it has a financial impact, it is started in the House of Representatives constitutionally, same in Washington.
Okay, so here, we will do a quick recap. We will, where's my little chair? Oh, I forget, it moves around. You're watching Merritt. Now Jody's sending me emails and messing up my board. I can't get rid of it. We'll just go back to us. I can't go back to us. What have I done? There we go. You're watching Merritt in the morning. So there we go.
I'm Jim Merritt.
And I'm Brad Klopfenstein. This is the longest reset ever. We are brought to you today by Alpsbrow Beer, and we're coming to you live, if you're watching on Facebook, from Cafe Audrey's at beautiful Fort Harrison.
Did you know this served dinner?
I just learned that recently. So they are open for dinner 4 days a week, Wednesday through Saturday.
And we had lunch here this week.
Yes, we did. We were here on
Turkey
Tuesday.
Club was fantastic.
I had a salad.
Now,
So yes, so come check them out. Be sure to come here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. If you're going out, make this your dinner option. So, all right. So back to, we've now got a bill. The Senate Pro Tem has assigned it to a committee. Hopefully it's not a committee where it's going to go to die. It's an appropriate committee.
Meaning the chairman doesn't have want anything to do with it.
Right.
And so it won't get a hearing and thus death.
Right. So you chaired the utility committee, and I'm sure that if you got a bill about lawn care, you'd look at it and be like,
yes, and as well as a bill that I vehemently disagreed with and could not be amended. And so I chose not to hear that bill, and whoever the member, the senator that had actually filed that bill, I would go to them, or I ask them to come to me, and I'd say, I don't agree with this piece of legislation, or I agree. If we could change it in this way, I agree with it. And if that's the case, if you would agree to those changes, I'd hear the bill. And so the chairman of the committee has all that strength, all that power.
You know, I messed up. I should have had about 10 of those little bills behind us, and every time there's an opportunity for him to get killed, just rip one down off the wall. All right, so our poor little bill, he's been filed, he survived, he made it to an appropriate committee. The committee chair looked at it and said, sure, I'll hear it. Then as committee chair, what happens when you're like, I've got 4 bills that are basically dealing with the same subject matter, and 3 of them are trying to accomplish one thing and one of them is trying to go the opposite direction. How do you sort that out?
Well, you go to all 4 authors, and you're just like you and I deal with any problem, you deal with it directly, and you talk to that individual and you say those individuals and say, you know, senators, you all have the same bill. I think it's a good idea. I like this one. I want you all to go on this, and I want this senator to be the lead author. And then you go to the person, the 4th person who has gone astray, and you say, this is the bill that I'm going to hear, and these are the changes, so this is the person that's going to lead the charge. Why don't you go on this bill if you agree with these changes to your bill, and try to get some sort of cohesive, cogent explanation to everybody, so that they're in the know. And I think the more the information you have, the more successful you are as a committee chairman. And that's where good public policy comes from, is not only communication, but a sense of camaraderie, as well as, you know, the idea of everybody working together.
You're watching Merritt in the Morning. If we do this right, this will be reshown to every 4th grade class in the state of Indiana, because we are doing a good civics lesson here on how a bill becomes a law. Okay, so we're still on the Senate side. They're in your committee. Bill gets heard. It's in committee. You're taking testimony. You've got the 3 bills are kind of trying to do the same thing. At that point, you try to merge those all in together.
Yes, they're combined in one piece of legislation. You would hope that the lead author that you've selected presents the bill in front of the committee, and it's usually a committee, maybe 9 members, and pretty much if it's 9 members, because the Senate is so weighed Republican wise in the way of majority, usually probably a 6-3 with Republican to Democrat, and you hear it. And you take public testimony, and people come into the State House and they sign up, and then if they're smart, they testify. And I instruct everybody to be very, very clear. Take 1 minute, have 3 or 4 points about the bill, and you keep it simple and keep it short.
Okay, so once we've combined them, you take amendments at this point.
Well, usually the bills are with the committee, or with the committee before, so they read them before they come to the committee hearing, and then I'll move around and talk to the members of the committee individually to see if anybody had any idea of changing the bill in a positive way, and we'll have amendments ready before the committee hearing. And should someone come with a good idea during the committee hearing, then the committee chairman has the right, unless you're going up to a deadline, and today's the deadline for committee reports in the Senate, that being today, and so April 13th, right? And so if somebody comes up with a good idea in the Senate Utility Committee hearing, and you want to change the bill, you hold the bill and you put the amendment out there, and then you rehear the bill without probably testimony, unless the amendment has big time changes in it. So then you allow everybody to have a conversation about it.
Do amendments have to be published ahead of time?
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Okay.
But it's if a committee chairman wants testimony on those amendments in the first committee hearing, if you will, on the bill, they will make them public.
Okay, so we've got a bill. There, we've got an idea. It's moving, and it's all into one basket. Can we call it a Christmas tree yet?
No,
No.
a committee chairman rarely marches forward with a bill without a consensus on the committee, without a majority of the committee members supporting it. That happens, it passes committee and then moves on to the Senate for second reading, which is an opportunity for the complete members, the 50 members of the General Assembly, to offer amendments to it.
Okay, so it gets called down, so there's additional amendments that come in from the floor. I would assume that those. Good morning, Tammy. Good, how are you? So I would assume that if a floor amendment comes in, would the person offering the floor amendment at least come and talk to the committee chair and the author ahead of time?
Yes, what the appropriate way about it is bill goes to second reading, it's there, it sits on your desk for a day or two, so you can study it. If somebody inside the committee or outside the committee has a better idea, they'll offer a second reading amendment to the legislation, and so everybody can see it. It's smart if that person who is amending the bill goes to the bill author, goes to the chairman of the committee and said, I think this makes this a better bill. And then it's discussed in the various caucuses, and usually the Republican caucus has the supermajority, and they make a decision if this amendment makes sense. If it makes it a better bill, then they'll support it and the amendment passes.
Okay, so we've got an amended bill. It's on second reading, passes second reading.
Yes,
Okay, so we're gonna leave a little bill up here on the wall
right,
for another step. So then it goes back and sits for a little bit.
right.
And then it's third reading, right?
Third reading.
So, but then the bill author has to call it down.
Yes.
Third reading.
Yes.
So the pro tem is flipping through bills. You've got them in some vague order. And when it's the bill's turn,
Numeral order.
okay, does it have to be in numerical order?
It always is.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Numerical order.
Okay. So then it's the bill's turn. The author then has the option, he can call it down.
Mhm.
And will there be testimony if he calls it down?
Yes.
Or
Well,
there's kind of a back and forth, right?
Yes, well, in second reading, when you call the bill, you call the amendment, the bill is called, amendment's called, then there'll be a discussion about the amendment at the microphone. There'll be a debate, if
Right.
you will. People that support the amendment, people don't. And then it goes to third reading. Author is the only member of the Senate that has the right to call that bill. Now, I've seen authors pass 25 days in a row, and then call it. And more likely that individual, that member of the Senate is trying to get 26, 27 votes to make sure the bill passes, and is working on the bill with the majority of the Senate. And so they call the bill on third reading. They go to the microphone. They briefly describe the bill because it's been talked about on second reading. It's been in first reading, if you will, in committee. And then they open the floor to debate. Lieutenant Governor is usually the presiding officer of the Senate, and anybody, all 50 have the right to ask for permission to speak on the bill, and they do. Now, if they want to question the author, they can do that as well. However, the author of the bill or anybody that is in the Senate does not have to rise an argument, argue and debate about the bill. You can say no. But I saw that happen maybe once in my 30 years. And so that it's heard on third reading and then heavily discussed or not at all, and then voted on.
Okay, so only because we're taking a long time on this. You're good. All right. So bill gets called down, bill then gets voted on by the entire Senate.
Yes,
We're going to assume that it gets at least 26 votes.
correct.
Okay. So it gets 26 votes. Then does it just go into a file cabinet, and at the midway point, they say, we're gonna turn all these over to the House and let them deal with them, or is there something else that has to happen?
Well, the bill passes the Senate, and then at some point, before the bills, the Senate bills go to the House for their consideration, the past bills and the House bills that have been passed by the
Right.
House come to the Senate for consideration. And so there's not a time limit on when a bill needs to be delivered to the Senate from the House.
Okay, I didn't know if there was any more action to be taken by the Senate at this point. Nope.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that passes week number 3. It sits there and waits until we're at the midpoint.
Right.
Okay, so then the process starts all over again, except your Senate utility bill is now over on the House side.
In the House Utility Committee,
Or-
probably.
Yes.
But
So-
that's up to the Speaker of the House of
So
Representatives.
if it was your bill, I would assume that you've been shopping this around to some of your friends in the House, saying, hey, I need to sponsor this in the House.
Yeah, early on, I always made a point that when I would be writing legislation, I'd have a teammate over in the House of Representatives. And preferably a Republican and Democrat that would carry the torch for me over there. And if it was a utility bill, I would talk to the utility chairman even before the bill actually passed the Senate, so that we John Von Arx, former county auditor. and-
Well, hello, John.
And Kathy Audrey enjoying, this is Merritt.
Brad Klopfenstein, good to see
Merritt
you.
Morning
So,
Podcast.
we're live on Facebook right now. We are doing our bi-weekly podcast right now.
And he is, and
No,
John
no.
Von Arx is president
If
of
you-
Volunteers of America. Have a seat, John.
Have a seat. We're gonna make room for you.
Volunteers of America is quite an organization. I work with them.
We're gonna
intensely.
slide this back just a little if we can. Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
There he is,
There he
ladies
is.
and gentlemen.
Pretty fun.
John, tell us about Volunteers of America.
Well, it is an organization that's been around since 1896. It was founded by some Christian social reformers, Maud and Ballington Booth.
Mhm.
And 1896 is a long time ago. Richmond, Indiana is where it started.
Wow.
In Indiana.
And now you cover Indiana, Ohio yourself.
It's Ohio and Indiana is our affiliate.
Mhm.
And we do, I think, a lot of good things for people in need
Mhm.
in recovery.
Tell us about Winchester.
Winchester is one of our.
Winchester, Indiana, right outside Richmond.
Yes, it is really just a very unique facility, serving women and their children, keeping families together and helping mom recover from the very serious challenges of addiction. But that family preservation model, so that,
And what do we call that?
well, with the program.
Yeah, the program.
Fresh Start.
Fresh Start. And are we in Columbus and Evansville?
Columbus, Evansville, Indianapolis, and Winchester.
That's fantastic. You all know Volunteers of America. You stop by it on your way downtown on Pennsylvania.
Yes,
And it's a remarkable, most people really don't understand that there's a possibility that all sorts of individuals, it's not just what you think of with someone suffering from addiction.
right.
And it could be a mom who is in charge, obviously, of taking care of her children, and she's suffering from it. And it's always good to keep the body of the family
Sure.
together.
It is, and you know this all too well, of being a leader in serving folks that are in need of these types of services. When mom is struggling, and oftentimes even during pregnancy, if she's using substances, a lot of people might say, "Oh my gosh, that's so awful." Well, it happens more often than we think, whether the other mental health challenges or stressors of life. And the goal is that if a baby is born with drugs in their system and that child is removed, the Department of Child Services comes in, that every day that mom is away from that child, it's less likely they'll ever be reunited. And it's also that much less likely that mom will succeed in her addiction recovery. So it's this ability to keep families together, keep them together in a very intensive program. And the success rates have been substantially good. So it's exciting to be a part of that work.
Now, was it 2017 or 18 that we opened Winchester?
18.
18.
Yeah.
This was a part of the legislation that I spoke about a few minutes ago. In 2017, we had 24 pieces of legislation that dealt with addiction, and the Winchester program was just number one, I think. And what we were trying to do is keep families together. And there are mothers who are suffering from addiction and that need a boost, need some support. And John, I'm so glad that Volunteers America was there and is there in Indianapolis and Evansville and Columbus and Winchester. It's just an invaluable program now that Volunteers America is an outstanding program.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on that team. It's a pleasure to be partnering with the governor and all of the state agency heads and the legislature to recognize the focus on serving clients in need, and that we're a part of that team is very exciting for us. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
To chat with you today.
Volunteers America.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to see everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
See
John.
you soon. That's what you call flexibility.
It is. Hey, got to roll with breaking news.
Yeah.
Adjust our camera just a little bit, so there we go. So
So we have a bill that has passed the Senate. It
Right.
goes over to the House.
you've got sponsors.
You got sponsors. You hope you have the chairman of the committee that will be supportive of your bill. But sometimes they don't. And more times than not, they do, but sometimes they don't.
All right, I got to rip another bill off the wall,
Rip another
throw
bill
them into
off.
the trash.
But you have to remember that utility chairman, if you will, the chairman of a committee over in the House of Representatives has their bills in the Senate chamber as well.
Ooh, this is kind of like a Mexican standoff.
Exactly. So you would hope that you would be working. And because for most of the time, there have been times that Democrats have led the House. And we didn't see eye to eye, so you'd expect that. But now with super majorities in both, you would expect everybody to be working together. And then utility chairman, if he has utility bills that have passed the House, he's kind of expecting you to hear those bills in your utility committee if you're chairman of that
All right, so
committee.
you're horse trading at this point.
Exactly. And
I
so-
like it.
So that mixes it up a little bit, and the bottom line is the chairman of a Senate committee or chairman of a House committee has to work with their brethren over the other chamber, and hopefully they will.
Okay, so in the middle of this, you were getting calls and text messages from constituents, lobbyists, other legislators who are encouraging you to cajole or support or kill all your bills.
Exactly, and in my experience with utility bills, you had the environmentalists who didn't
Right.
want anything to happen in the way of coal, if you will, or anything to do with utility bills. And so you had that push and that pull, and then again, you had the coal lobby, you had the utilities who wanted to expedite things, wanted to make life easier for their clients, their residential, their commercial payers, if you will, and the customers are number one. So you tend to listen to those that are trying to help their own,
Right.
And so it's all about anything with a decision to make. You weigh everything and you make the very best decision with the information that you've got. And I heard most of the utility bills coming from the House of Representatives because number one, it was good public policy in the making, and two, it resembled a lot of what we sent over to the House of Representatives.
Okay, so we're gonna fast forward. So on the House side, it's basically the same process. The rub is the House committee could put their own amendments on there, which means that this bill no longer jives with what the Senate passed. So
And that happens more than you know.
Right.
And they'll put amendments on there, and it may not even be in the topic that the bill actually is. Sometimes, and you use the term strip a bill, you take all of the subject matter out and you put others in because it's a live vehicle, if you will, in the system. And so we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. No.
who determines if language is germane?
That is determined by the Senate pro tem, the president pro tem of the Senate. I can tell you my experience in the Senate, we tried to make it one subject only, and well, we do make it one subject only constitutionally. And except for big bills like a budget, which you have all sorts of different topics in it, if it's a topic dumplings and dump trucks, apples and dump trucks, it didn't work together. And so that's a pretty broad example of it.
Okay, so now we're going to assume that our little bill that you started, it passed the Senate, made it to the House. It's passed the House with amendments. So now it comes back.
Comes back.
And this is where it gets interesting and infuriating, and the public, if they thought they knew everything else, conference committee.
Yeah, that's where we are right now.
So conference committee is going on this week.
And it's called the silly season.
It is.
Our friend Abdul wrote an article about it, and it called the silly season. That's exactly what the nickname is, because everything that died is alive again.
Let me pull them out of the trash. So a little bill in the trash,
Right.
and we'll put them back up on the wall.
All
Okay,
that text, all that language in
yeah.
that bill is
He's back
alive.
in play.
Yes, and what individuals who are authors or sponsors of dead bills live again try to take language out of those bills that they most want and insert them into other bills when there is a conference committee appointed. The Senate Pro Tem and the Speaker of the House name conference committees for individual bills, which has 2 members from each party, 2 members from each caucus in a conference committee with House and Senate representatives.
There's no public testimony in conference committee.
There can
correct?
be. There can be.
Okay,
There
so you
can be.
can't take public testimony.
Rarely there is, because usually this horse has been ridden, and but ordinarily not, but sometimes there is committee hearing, committee testimony.
Okay, but largely it's 4 people in a room. And so you've got all this language, so they try to mash it up. So
Yeah, something that they think they can take to their caucus and have the caucus, majority of the caucus support. And so that is the chore that they can try to find something that all 4 people can agree on.
okay, so let's say that 3 of the 4 agree, but you've got a holdout.
Okay.
Then what happens in
Well,
this conference committee?
You can tell it's right now, mid-April, and you have until April 29th. Legislature will not adjourn on April 29th. They'll adjourn before that. And so you have a time frame where that individual, if they hold out and they hold out and they hold out, eventually, if the caucus thinks this is an important piece of legislation, the Senate Pro Tem or the Speaker has the right to take that individual off the committee and put somebody in on that committee that is agreeable to the changes in the different bill that came to conference committee.
Okay,
And support the bill in conference committee. Then that conference committee report is sent to the Senate, and the origin of the bill itself. If it's a Senate bill, it goes to the Senate conference committee report, goes in front of the complete Senate. If it passes by majority, it goes on to the House for their consideration. And should it be passed, that conference committee report becomes the enrolled act, and the governor then has the opportunity to sign it or veto it.
so how often does a bill die in conference?
Probably 1 in 10.
Okay,
Not
so
very often.
a little bill back down into the trash
Yeah,
again.
uh-huh.
All right, so we started off the year with 1,000 bills or so.
Mhm.
Probably by the time where we are now, you're down to 50, 60 maybe?
There
Maybe
probably
less.
this year, there'll probably be 180 to 200 bills
Okay,
become law.
okay,
And so you're down to, with conference committee reports, it could be as many as 300 or so. This year, I would assume that there could be 100 bills passed. It just all depends on what happens the next 2 weeks.
okay. So bills passed conference committee, it's been voted on by the Senate, passed, been voted on by the House, passed. So you now have, what was the term you said? Forgot now. What's going to the governor's desk?
Enrolled act.
Enrolled act.
Yeah.
So the enrolled act.
Well, let's back up a minute.
Okay,
Let's just say the Senate bill that the conference committee, supported 3-1. And so it passed conference committee, if you will.
Right.
That report goes to the Senate, they pass it. However, it goes to the House for their consideration and they defeat the conference committee report. And that happens every so once in a while.
Wall.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill, you're off the wall again.
You're off the wall. And in the House committee, or excuse me, the House of Representatives says if you change this particular part, we discovered this. If you change this, we have the numbers to support it. If the Senate disagrees with that change, it's good likelihood the bill dies.
Okay.
And so, but the bottom line is both the House and the Senate have to agree on the changes to the bill.
Okay. So we're going to assume that they've passed. Everybody's coming to agreement. We have an enrolled act. It now goes to the governor's office. Yes, 10 days, but it's not necessarily 10 days.
No, it's 10, it isn't 10 days. And it goes by so fast. I believe it's 10 working days.
10 working days,
Yeah.
but then there's also processing. So it takes a little bit for
Yeah,
the back office people to.
and for the General Assembly to deliver the bill.
Right.
And after the bill passes the House and the Senate, the report, if you will, or the bill, they go, the Secretary's office goes around and has everybody sign it. The bill author, the bill sponsor, and that takes a minute. So it's when the bill is received by the governor.
Okay.
That's when the time clock starts.
Okay. So starts the clock. So by this time, on a lot of these bills, you guys have signed it out. You've adjourned, you're like sayonara, I'm going back to my district.
Right.
So this process, when it's all said and done, you might be pushing Memorial Day before time runs out on all the bills that have gone to the governor's desk.
Yes, you will.
So,
Yeah. And you have and I'm not sure if they're dealing with this today, but you have a technical corrections day that is in mid-May. That you may, if you're the leaders of the legislature, you may use and you may not.
okay,
And so if you have a day like that and a bill has been vetoed by the governor, that would be a time for the legislature to take a vote on either overriding veto, which is a simple majority, or supporting the veto. And so that business can be held right at that day. Should that not come about, that technical corrections day, if you will, then they have to wait all the way to organization day in November.
okay. So let me ask you, we're getting close. You're watching Merritt in the morning, by the way, Brad Klopfenstein and Jim Merritt. We are wrapping up. We're doing how a bill becomes a law. If you didn't catch us at the beginning, go back and watch this later. We did the whole Schoolhouse Rock. We watched that whole thing. So in Indiana, it only takes a simple majority to override a veto.
Yes.
Why would the legislature not override every veto? Because it's like, you've already passed this once.
Well, it's a simple majority, but it may be a very controversial issue. We've seen this with this governor where it was really up in the air. The governor had written 31 executive orders, and the legislature found fault with that. And there were a lot of people in the legislature that thought the governor should call them into special session to deal with the pandemic. And he didn't.
Count me as one of them.
Yes, and so it really all depends on the issue at hand, what actually the topic is in that bill that he vetoed, and how that governor, he or she, in the future, hopefully, what kind of position that individual, that governor has placed, and how he or she feels about it, and convincing the legislature, I vetoed this because of this. And for instance, I think there are times that the governor has vetoed bills because it immediately puts the state of Indiana into court. They're being sued by the ACLU or whatnot, and they don't believe that our position is strong enough to win a court case. So that would be a reason why a governor would veto the bill. And so there are myriad of reasons that they can convince the leadership the General Assembly to follow him or her, then there's a good possibility that the veto would be sustained.
Okay. So all these bills, we're assuming that they weren't vetoed and didn't have to go to
Well, you
organization.
would hope the governor would be working on these bills, his staff would be working on these important bills with the legislature during session.
You would hope.
Yes, yes. And so I saw the other day that Governor Holcomb signed 16 bills.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so-
So all these, so the several bills have already gone to his desk. and
Yes.
They're getting signed.
And usually the enrolled date, unless there's emergency, all laws go into the code, Indiana code, and are installed on July 1st.
Okay. So very good. So that's, we've gone way long on this show, but that's okay. This was interesting. It was interesting to us.
Yes,
Clearly
and thank
interesting to 6 others.
Thank
but
you, John Von Arts, to talk about volunteer for Merritt,
fun.
someplace that's really close to my heart.
So sometime I'd like to have him back and just do a whole episode
We
of
should.
talking about his career and
Yeah,
how he went from,
former Marion County auditor.
went from auditor to volunteerism.
Yeah.
So let me go back and we gotta find our slide again. Hey, look, there it is. So you've been watching Merritt in the Morning. Coming to you live, at least as of this moment, from Cafe Audrey at beautiful Fort Harrison. Open for breakfast and lunch 7 days a week, dinner Wednesdays through Saturdays. Be sure to check them out. The dinner thing is new. Thanks to our sponsor, Alpsbrow Beer.
Sprout.
Delicious. Jim's had at least one of those at some point. So thank you again for watching. This will be up on our YouTube channel. And we now have a new Facebook page. So if you want to check it out, it is facebook.com/Merritt in the Morning. Very simple to find. So like and follow that. And we'll be back here and do this again in 2 weeks.
Work hard and be nice.
Work hard and be nice. I love that. Thank you all for watching.